evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. What are peace negotiations worth if the occupied country is being left out of the negotiating process and its closest allies have no say either? To discuss future US-Russian negotiations, we're joined by political analyst Eusebiu Slavitescu. Good evening.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting it. So, how to explain Washington's decision to cut Europe off the peace talks?
Shocking, first. We in Europe, we've been through that. Yalta, sharing the sphere of influences. This brings a lot of memories to the Europeans. It's why...
And Munich as well.
In Munich as well.
1938.
Absolutely. Right? How much of a on point that is. So this first, it's shocking. I am an optimist, so I'm gonna focus on what's the opportunity here. The opportunity is for us Europeans to finally wake up. We had 70 plus years to wake up. We didn't. And if up until 3 years ago, until the Russian full-scale, criminal, illegal, and brutal invasion on peaceful and sovereign Ukraine. Again, language matters. We were very passive, although in the first term, President Trump rang the bells. Let's remember the conversation with Angela Merkel. We've done nothing. Except from Poland, the Baltics, the Nordics, Romania, but you can always count on the Baltics, Poland, Nordics, and Romania to lead on defense and security. Nobody actually did much of it. France and Germany are still below 2.5 threshold. And if you start from the West, the more you go towards the East, the less military spending, the more military spending you'll find.
Yes. Yes. So are you saying that no European leaders are invited to peace talks because Donald Trump does not consider them to be reliable partners because they had so much time to work on defense spending and so on and never did so?
Absolutely. We don't matter. That's how much we don't matter. And in this, when you talk about negotiation, especially wartime, ending a war, it all comes down to power, to military power. What can you do? Do you matter to be at that table? Well, right now, Europe doesn't. Let's see if we seize the opportunity and we finally wake up. Because what? Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, they are going to discuss huge interest of the European Union, of the Europe, without us at the table? How is that going to go? He promised he will take our interest into consideration. Can you imagine that? And this is coming from our best ally and friend.
Yeah, well, Marco Rubio says that Ukraine and the EU will have to be involved in the negotiating process at some point, but we don't know where, on what, when, where, on what terms. And President Zelensky is already against any peace talks between Moscow and Washington. And there's something else that I'd like to ask here. Maybe my imagination is running wild, but Donald Trump is known as a person who would like to be remembered as a peace broker in Europe. That is for sure. Could it be that he's unwilling to have Macron, for example, at the negotiating table because he wants to portray it as his sole success?
Well, that we know he wants. He really likes to be in front of the lights, in front of the cameras. Mm-hmm. But with what price are you doing this? Even the call criminal. Remember, Vladimir Putin is a wanted man for war crimes by the International Court. These are facts. Imagine calling Vladimir Putin instead of calling President Zelensky. The legitimacy you are giving to that man, with whom nobody other than Chancellor Scholz, and that was a huge mistake, spoke with him in 3 years, because this is how it should be. How do you speak with a war criminal? And last night, and the night before, Iranian drones, ballistic missiles kept on raining on residential population in Ukraine. And to say in a tweet that President Putin wants peace, it's like calling Hitler after invading in 1939 Poland and saying Hitler wants peace. It's shocking. It really is shocking. And I'm hoping everybody is waking up in all the European capitals as we speak.
Would you say that they're already popping champagnes in Moscow? Because
Absolutely.
It seems as a huge success on the
Absolutely. Not
the diplomatic stage.
Not just Kremlin, but also in Beijing. Also, China is popping up because this language is the perfect excuse for China. What happens in Ukraine, how it ends, will show us what China is going to do. It has an even more aggressive day-by-day presence around Taiwan. Anyway, all of that. So, although for Trump this is a show, basically the Oval Office has become a show, right? Where all the cameras are in each afternoon and he's signing executive orders and whatever. But this is not a show. This is the fate of the free world that we're talking about.
President Zelensky says some 150,000 Russian soldiers will soon be deployed to Belarus with an unclear aim. They could be preparing to attack NATO countries soon, if not Ukraine. Now, how realistic is this scenario?
Quite realistic. I mean, didn't they did the same when they attacked Ukraine, right? Didn't they just weeks before, days before, when the American intelligence community told us they will invade, they rebooted in many ways, and then they attacked. So if you go back to Vladimir Putin's speech, and we actually listen to him, right? He wants, and he says it clearly, he wants back the Union Soviet. He wants back the sphere of influence as they used to have. And that comes down to what? That comes down to the Baltics, into the Russian sphere of influence, Moldova, Romania, Poland. So, I mean, yes or no, we don't know, but it's credible. I would take that very serious if I would be prime minister, minister, and high official.
So we know that, we, the Europeans, we already know that we'll have to spend more, although Poland already allocates a vast percent of its GDP on defense purposes, but the rest of European allies are still not. Now, what awaits Europeans now? How will it affect our everyday lives? I mean, here in Warsaw, but also in Lisbon or in Paris.
So it all comes down of how much we are afraid of the threat. As I said, Poland is very afraid. You can see it by the military spending, and the entire eastern flank is. Coming down to military spending, I've said this many times, we have been sleepwalking for way too long. If I would be a voter from Florida or Iowa, why would I have to pay for 70 plus years for the security of the Europeans? So that makes sense to some extent. That Europeans have to finally take their destiny into their hands. But this is where it comes down to make it European, right? Because, okay, Portugal, it's way far away from the front. Berlin is 2-3 hours by flight. So when you have, it is not fair that we have Poland pushing 5%, which is incredible amount of money. And we applaud Poland for that, or Romania, or the Baltics, pushing, because we know we have had experience with Russia. And then Lisbon, France, Germany, incredibly rich countries, they are not pushing enough. So the idea right now, and I'm hoping tomorrow in Paris, the summit that was conveyed by Macron, and there will be many others extraordinary summits, because this is the moment we either wake up and we push for European money into defense, or we cease to matter altogether. Just like we saw from President Trump. Russia, US, without Europe.
So Brussels does not seem to be a real partner for Donald Trump, and yet, not him personally, but his representatives do meddle in European affairs, and I'm talking about J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich Peace Conference. Before that, we had a lot of remarks from Elon Musk, and he's openly supporting the AfD only a few days before the elections in Germany. So is Donald Trump also trying to change the political stage of Europe as it is?
Absolutely. This is what we witnessed this weekend with Vice President Vance. That was a speech as if the crowd in that room was a MAGA crowd, except it wasn't a MAGA crowd. That was a crowd full of European leaders, decision makers, experts, who are incredibly afraid, who are very scared about what happens right now, especially since Donald Trump wants to cut off Europe in the negotiations. So that speech really didn't go well. First, lecturing Europe on freedom of speech, really? When a couple of days ago, the White House forbidden the access to an AP reporter just because he refused to call Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, or that President Trump, a couple of weeks ago, he freed hundreds of rioters who tried to storm in the Senate, a constitutional coup, or from an administration who refused to accept the results of a free and transparent election. How are you lecturing us? I mean, I don't think anybody in that room actually took that speech serious. Not to mention, he refused to meet with Chancellor Scholz because he's going anyway. But he met with the AfD leaders, which is an extremist party in Germany. And now we're having election. If this is not interference, what it is? Right.
Now, I'll also like to ask you about the tomorrow's meeting in Paris. It seems that Emmanuel Macron is trying to take the baton back, and
he's been trying for years.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to lead the European Peace Party, right? But what outcome should we expect from it, apart from some grand declarations that Europe stands by Ukraine till the very end?
So I think we've had enough of statements, right? Because the EU is very good on statements, and we are looking at it with worries, and this has to stop. We need action right now, and I'm hoping this is what we're going to see. So what is to be expected? Von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, already announced on Friday the rule that sort of was an obstacle for European defense, for member states to go up. So she's putting that away so that we can go fully into investment. So I expect a continuation of that. I expect a few billions thrown into this European defense. We have to stop joking around. Either this, where we cease to matter altogether. I cannot say this enough. So the other grasp the danger. I saw a lot of talk about European army, and it's too early. Let's not use this language because we're not ready for that language right now. But how about thinking of to integrate the European armies on a European level? With maybe a centralized command when need be. How about further enhancing this defense cooperation?
So who is to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, if not Europeans with the army? And so far we only know that Americans are probably willing to send their troops to Ukraine, but only to protect the rare earth minerals mines. Who are to be and even to serve as a compensation for.
President Zelensky said this weekend a couple of times that European soldiers are not enough. Only American troops would be a guarantee. And since American troops are out of the picture, or maybe they aren't, because this is what we've seen these couple of days. Messages that are conflictual. So you have some messages from the White House. Then you have President Vance. Then you have the defense secretary saying some other stuff. NATO is off the table, but then it's not off the table. Europeans are not negotiating, but then they are at the negotiating table. What is the strategy actually here? I'm not sure there is one, to be honest.
And that's also what President Zelensky already said, that he sees no clear plan for peace from the American side. But maybe, hopefully, things will change very fast, as they are already gaining momentum. Eusebiu Slavitescu, political analyst, was our guest tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.